Welcome. Today we're going to be taking apart an Asus UX501V series laptop. This is the UX501VW-US71T, and it has the 6th gen i7 and a GeForce, I believe it's a 950M. So to start out, we're going to need a small Torx bit. This is a T5, and then just be advised we're leaving the display assembly complete. But we'll take apart most of the chassis. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is go along the perimeter and remove the Torx screws. Alright, once you get those perimeter case screws out, Asus has decided to hide a couple Phillips head screws underneath the feet, so you'll have to remove those back 2 feet. And this is a small Phillips. I'm going to be using a 2.5, and it should be, most of the inside should also be a small Phillips bit. Okay, I guess I'll leave that one for now. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think the front have feet or screws beneath the feet, so we're just going to go around and finish trying to pop that bottom case off. There we go. So it's just the rear two that have the screws poking through. So once you get those rear feet removed, then you can finish taking off that bottom case. It's interesting that they do that because, I mean, there's obviously a couple of screws right next to it to hold that position, hold it down tightly, so I don't know, maybe they just do that so people will break their laptop. Okay, so the first thing we usually do is remove the battery. So with this type of connector, it's usually better to remove the battery screws first. That way we can just pull up on the battery to remove that connector. I really dislike this type of battery connector because sometimes it's clicked in so tightly that when you go to pull up on that connector, it can sometimes rip the connector off of the motherboard. So just a piece of tape maybe. Yeah. Okay. Looks like there's one more. So it feels like the battery, so there's a little notch right here, so you have to move the battery up a little bit. Once you get those notches pulled, we're just going to try to be careful with that connector right there. Okay. So once you get the battery loose, the connector should just pop up and off. Some of these have a little retainer clip there that you have to pull back. This one does not, so just lift that battery up and off of the connector to remove it. Alright, for the RAM stick, we'll just spread the little bars there. And one thing I want to mention about Asus is they're starting to put this gunk that's on the memory sticks. So when you go to pull it off, it'll usually take the part number sticker with it, so you can't really see what kind of RAM. This one's a little different. Okay, so it's DDR4 2133. I've seen a lot of the Asus have these types that just crumble when you try to take it off. I guess that's for the manufacturer to just keep people from trying to upgrade their computer without buying it directly from Asus. I'm not sure. They're the only ones I've seen do that. Okay, so the SSD, we just have the one screw. We'll remove the screw. And then we'll pull the SSD from the slot. This is a NVMe 2280 size SSD. Okay, next with the Wi-Fi card, same deal. We're just going to do the one screw, and I'll have to pull up on some tape. And then just pull straight up on those antennas to get them to pop off. And we'll have to lift up on the card a little bit to wiggle it out so it doesn't hit the hinge. Okay, so as long, you can always remove the display as long as you can disconnect everything. So it's hopefully on top of the motherboard, all the connections for the screen. It looks like it in this case. So for the display connector, just pop straight up and off. Looks like they have a piece of tape screwed into the hinge, so we're going to remove that. Okay, so by request, I think I'm going to go ahead and remove the screen assembly first. It does look like it has to come off anyways to remove the motherboard, or at least loosening the hinges and swiveling them up and out of the way. You should be able to get the motherboard out, but it looks like the screen needs to be, the hinges need to be swiveled up or the display removed to get that motherboard all the way out. So we'll go ahead and remove the screws from each side. I'm going to leave one in each side so that I can hopefully just open this up. And then most display assemblies need to be in a full open position or 90 degrees to remove the, to be able to clear the palm rest. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and remove those last two hinge screws after we've opened the screen. Then just definitely support it with your hand as you're removing the last two screws. So once you have those cables and antennas disconnected and you remove those hinge screws, you should be able to remove the display assembly no problem. So go ahead and set that aside and continue working on the palm rest. So we'll go ahead and just remove the remaining tape that's sitting on top of the connectors we need to disconnect. So we'll go ahead and remove those fan screws next. So with these connectors, it's just you grab the little tabs with your fingernails and then you can just pull it straight out of that slot and then remove the screws. Okay, so another awesome thing Asus does, they've put little plastic tabs that run along both sides of the heatsink. So in order to replace your fans, you're either going to have to bend the heatsink up or remove the heatsink first. So we'll go ahead and pull all these heatsink screws. There's numbers stamped next to the screws, and that's the tightening order. So you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But as far as removal, it doesn't matter which order you take them out. And it looks like Asus is also put a warranty sticker over one of the heatsink screws, so if you ever remove your heatsink, it looks like your warranty is void if seal is broken or removed. So that's something to keep in mind if you're trying to redo your thermal paste or replace something else in here. So the heatsink can sometimes be stuck pretty well with those pads or thermal paste, so just kind of wiggle it back and forth as you're pulling upward on it, and then you should be able to overcome the adhesive properties of the thermal paste and pads, and we can remove the heatsink. Okay, so we can finish removing that first fan and go after the second one. So yeah, definitely be advised if you want to replace any of the fans, you're going to need some thermal paste as well after you remove the heatsink. I don't particularly like that design. It's kind of inefficient to make your fans not replaceable without removing the heatsink, but it's just something Asus does. So we are ready to remove the motherboard, and to do that I'm just going to finish disconnecting all the little connectors. So the speakers we're just going to pull straight out, and then all of these types here at the bottom of the motherboard are just flip up. So you're going to flip up the connector, take out the ribbon, and flip it back down. Keep it from getting broken. Okay, got all those nice and loose, and it does look like that's everything. So we'll go ahead and finish removing these motherboard screws. Alright, so looks like we got one more. So when you first go to remove the motherboard, you want to do it really slowly and just give it some light wiggle, and this will help you determine if you've missed any screws. So we're just going to give it a little bit more of a wiggle. And then also, I don't know if that actually goes all the way through here. Sometimes these ports can stick through the sides of the palm rest or bottom case. So sometimes on these motherboards where both sides are poking through, you might need to lift from the middle, or use your thumb to kind of pull back on the metal or plastic, whichever, on that side to help clear those ports. And then you're just going to wiggle it back and forth until it comes free. And then we will slowly turn it over and make sure there's no other ribbons connected. And then just be advised, you have onboard RAM underneath this little cover, and then the one expansion slot. In this case, the expansion slot was filled with a 8 gigabyte. So on this particular model, it has 8 gigs of onboard RAM. Okay, so we'll take a final look here at the palm rest assembly. Speakers are just kind of clipped in, there's no screws. Touchpad is removable with just a few screws up here on the top. You can remove that touchpad. And it looks like the keyboard I don't believe the keyboard is removable due to the little brackets here being kind of riveted in with melted plastic. Usually on the plastic palm rests, or palm rests that have the plastic inner, they're just going to melt the keyboard in. Basically, it makes it cheaper to manufacture. So most of the time the keyboard is not replaceable on these. Alright, so that is it. That is how you disassemble an Asus UX501V series laptop. If this video helped you or you found it informative, please like and subscribe. Thanks.